you have here in Mississippi. He noted that school children showed up yesterday with gloves on, ready to go to work. I met school children today that are continuing to help. This has been a remarkable recovery from Saturday when I was here shortly after my arrival and saw the destruction that had taken place until today has been nothing less than remarkable. We are continuing this effort. I want to thank all the volunteer organizations, the faith-based organizations, the Red Cross, the Salvation Army. I want to thank the organizations that are now beginning, like Pine Belt Foundation, that will be the center for all other volunteers that will be coming in. For Volunteer Mississippi, you heard about the good work that they are doing. So this could not be done without the thousands and thousands of Mississippians that are joining together in this recovery effort. I will give you some numbers quickly. In Forrest County, there have been 1,117 homes affected. 217 had some minor damage, 249 major damage, 239 homes were totally destroyed. 239. This is a terrible storm with that much destruction, and of course the loss of the lives of 4 Mississippians. Another 422 homes have been affected. That might be at a level of missing some shingles or some minor damage to having no power. Let me then move into what we think has happened in Lamar County. About 95 homes affected there, 30 to 35 damaged or destroyed. We've had damage by the weather event that occurred the day after this storm in the Lauderdale County area, so we will be responding to that as well as to the 5 counties that were named in the emergency declaration issued that I issued on the afternoon of the storm. Let me say also that the power companies have been heroes. As we looked at the thousands and thousands, Mississippi Power, for example, after the storm had 11,000 outages, 11,000 homes and businesses without power. We think there's somewhere now around 315 remaining. Half of those probably cannot take power. They've either been totally destroyed or damaged to the extent where they cannot receive power. The goal of Mississippi Power is to have all of their affected customers' power restored by midnight tonight. If you think about when this storm came in at 3:30, 3:40 on Saturday, and to know that we have had this type of recovery by Mississippi Power. Dixie Electric Company had 777 without power. They have 200 poles down. Pearl River Valley, about 2,000 now. All are back on. I think Dixie Electric has some that they're continuing to work with, but there is nothing more important after the rescue and recovery than getting the power back to those homes that can take it. It is a life-altering, life-changing experience if you can move back into your home to have that type of power. We talked about the volunteers earlier. I want to thank the National Guard, General Durbois. We will continue to have National Guard presence for security and safety purposes. So they will be back on the street as they are now, more than likely throughout the week, as will the as will the Department of Public Safety. It is so critically important that we remind those in the general public not to come here for sightseeing purposes. You more than likely will be stopped and questioned by a police officer. It is our goal to prevent any looting that might occur. And so if you are in these neighborhoods and you do not live there, you more than likely, I hope, will be stopped and asked why you are here. So this is not an amusement park. This is not to be confused with a vacation location. If you do not have business here, if you are not volunteering, if you do not have family and friends that you are helping, do not come to this area. I can't make it any plainer than that. Just moments ago, I received a call from General John Kelly. He is the new Secretary of the United States Homeland Security. General Kelly offered his condolences for the loss of the 4 Mississippians. He pledged that the Department of Homeland Security and FEMA will be working with all due diligence in making sure that the support from the United States federal government will be forthcoming. I advised him that I will be forwarding a letter to the President of the United States this afternoon requesting public assistance for the affected counties in the Pine Belt and Lauderdale County. He has met with and discussed that possibility and probability now with the FEMA director and assured me again that the Department of Homeland Security and FEMA will be leaning into this storm and to the recovery effort. General Kelly again said for all Mississippians to know that he had met with the President today. They understand the conditions that exist here in Mississippi. They have been reaching out to my office, and I've been working today, as I reminded General Kelly. So we're very proud that we were able to receive his support, and we'll be looking for meetings with FEMA hopefully this afternoon. I'm going to call on Lee Smithson now, the Director of Mississippi Emergency Management, that will give further details about our relationship and working relationship with FEMA and what we can expect from this point on. Colonel Smithson.
Well, thank you, Governor. Before I talk about our transition from response to recovery with the Federal Emergency Management Agency, let me make a couple of points. This was, as the Governor said, a great tragedy. 4 lost lives, over 50 people injured in this storm. But now is the time for everyone, our first responders, our public employees, our volunteers, and our citizens, to make safety your #1 concern. People need to make sure that they stay hydrated, that they're getting plenty of sleep, and that they're taking care of one another. The health department will be working in the next few days to ensure that tetanus shots are being administered to the people out handling debris. And we're asking to make sure you have gloves on, heavy shoes, and do not take risks. The Governor was jokingly saying about the First Lady being up on a roof in Louisville. We're asking that if you're not capable of doing something, don't take it on. There are plenty of volunteers who are out there to help. But let's not have any more tragedies with injuries or deaths. We've been in contact with FEMA starting within hours of the storm to give them a good assessment. And under the new leadership that we have, FEMA, the Department of Homeland Security, and the White House is looking at the way Mississippi does business. Our damage assessments are so thorough, thanks to the people of Forest, Lamar, Perry, Marion, and Lauderdale counties, that FEMA wants to come and start their assessments tomorrow, but they don't want to wait for the FEMA people to come in and do their assessments. So as the Governor said, he will be sending the letter up through FEMA Region 4 to FEMA headquarters and then to the White House for approval of a major disaster declaration. So I don't want to use the word expedited because there are expedited requests. This is a request that's being pushed fastly because of the thoroughness of our damage assessments. So we have individual assessment teams on their way to Mississippi right now from Atlanta. Those people will arrive tonight. First thing tomorrow, an individual assessment team that's going out to survey the damage to private residences will begin tomorrow in Forest County. Another team will begin tomorrow in Lamar County, and once they complete their assessments in Lamar County, they will move to Perry County to do their assessments. Now, one thing I want to make perfectly clear, they are not going to go out and look at all 1,000 plus homes that were damaged. They will do a sampling to make sure that what we're doing has been in accordance with FEMA standards. They will be very happy with what the people of Forest, Marion, and Lamar counties have done. So they will just endorse what we've done. So what we are hoping is that the disaster recovery centers will be established by the end of this week for individuals to come in and begin applying for aid. And when we go back to the 2013 event, you know, it was well over 5 days before displaced citizens could go in and start their registration. So we're confident that it will be much, much faster than that because of the efforts of the people of this community. So we're looking forward to that. The public assistance teams, those are the ones that come in and do the assessments of the infrastructure, will be traveling tomorrow and start their assessments the day after. And the reason for that is because we still need to get a good handle on the amount of damage done to the infrastructure throughout the county, the cities that were impacted. So that's nothing that FEMA is doing, dragging their feet. It's just that we've got to get a good assessment because obviously the focus has been on the individual citizens. The volunteer community, as has already been said, the volunteer community is truly the linchpin in our long-term recovery. So we will be there to help everyone. The Federal Emergency Management Agency will be there to help everyone, but it's our long-term recovery that will be done by our faith-based and other volunteer organizations. So collectively, we will make sure that when this is over with, our community is better than it ever has been before. But I feel obligated to just touch on one last thing about individual assistance. When residents go in and apply for individual assistance, the way the program is designed is the money that will be given by the Federal Emergency Management Agency is not to restore your home to pre-storm conditions. The intent behind individual assistance is to make your homes safe, sanitary, and habitable. So that is why it is so imperative that even if you go in and register for individual assistance, that you still go in to the volunteer reception center and register for nonprofit organizations to come in and help you out, because FEMA and MEMA will not return your property to pre-storm conditions. So it's a whole of community approach to make sure that our community comes back better than ever. Any questions for me, the governor, or for Mr. Moore, the county EMA director? Yes,
What is the threshold that you have to hit to warrant a major declaration and get that aid?
For our public assistance threshold is $4.2 million in damage to infrastructure. And so we're looking at, and that does include parts of the power grid, the sewage lagoon and sewage lift stations had damage to them, some water systems had damage to it. For individual assistance, it's generally 250 plus homes with major damage. So obviously, as the governor said, we've met that threshold for individual assistance.
Any other questions for the governor or the executive director?
How long do you think, that just so people sit at home who haven't gone through this process, if they live around here, they probably may have, from application to check in the mail, how long does that process often take?
Well, and that's a very good question. And FEMA, again, has really gotten better over the past few years, because before it was if you filled out paperwork, you still had to key it into a computer system. You know, they have really gotten that expedited, that it will be loaded into a database. We will have MEMA personnel, FEMA personnel, and volunteers helping them key that in. And so if the information is correct, you could see the possibility of 10 to 14 business days from the time they get processed. Now, again, the true test on that is the accuracy of information that we get from the residents.
What kind of money is often available in these types of situations, best case scenario for a person in a house who got whacked?
The maximum individual assistance grant is $33,000. That's the maximum. So again, it depends on whether or not they had insurance, if they had insurance, how much insurance they had, and then the size and value of the home that was impacted. So, you know, people cannot anticipate coming in and everyone's going to get a check for $33,000. That's just not going to happen. So it's case by case dependent.
In
Yes,
the
ma'am.
meantime, what type of resources do the people who have been affected have?
Well, you know, I know it really sounds cliche, but I have to say, when things get bad, people get good, and we get good. So as the governor and I were out touring through the neighborhoods, you know, the houses that had the roofs taken off have been tarped up. The faith-based communities, individual school students were out handing out water, Gatorade, and food. So the immediate life-saving needs have all been met, and we're not getting any indications of people that are in great duress. Medicine has been delivered and coordinated. So, you know, temporary housing right now, we've only got one shelter that's open. Glenn, I believe it had 76 people or 66 people in it last night. So we're not seeing any great needs right now that have not been met. Now, as the governor and I were talking about today, you know, people are staying with relatives, and that could get real old real quickly. So as everything goes on, we will be looking at alternative housing options for the displaced people. But again, that's on a case-by-case basis. It's dependent on apartment availability, hotel room availability, or, you know, preferably we get in and start affecting the repairs of the homes as quickly as we can, so that those families can get moved back into their homes even while they're being rebuilt.
So if someone wants to get a loan or something, can they be reimbursed for a hotel and that type of thing?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So that falls up underneath the alternative housing program. And so if people are displaced from their homes now and they're in hotels, we just ask that they keep all their receipts when they come in and apply for individual assistance. Yes, ma'am, that's a very good question.
And then as far as, there's a lot of volunteers and stuff that want to move into this area and help out, what do those people at home need to know before coming here?
Well, I think that any volunteers who are wanting to come in and help, first of all, we welcome them. Because we need all the help we can get, and this is gonna be a months-long program, not a weeks-long program. But people who are wanting to volunteer to come down, we ask that they coordinate through the Pine Belt Community Foundation, the Volunteer Reception Center, to make sure that we don't have the spontaneous volunteers. The other thing that we're asking is if you wanna come down and volunteer, then you coordinate with the faith-based organizations to stay in churches. Don't tie up critical hotel rooms to come down and do work. So we appreciate everyone's sacrifice, but we need our families with small children to be able to stay in those hotel rooms or apartments and not volunteers coming down to help out. So if they want to come down, we never want to turn them away, but they just need to be prepared to stay in an austere environment while they're doing their any repairs or whatever they're volunteering to come in and do.
You said the Pine Belt Community what?
Foundation.
Foundation.
Or the American Red Cross. I mean, there are so many volunteer organizations out there, but we're asking that we just look at the one central one that was briefed by the Mississippi Commission on Volunteer Services, and I can assure everyone that they will coordinate with all the volunteer agencies that are out there to make sure that we share the love with all of the volunteer organizations.
I have a question for the governor. This may be a step ahead of the game in a manner of speaking. What impact do these types of events have on the state budget? Do we have a rainy day fund, or is this something where we move funds around to cover the?
Well, it affects the budget of MEMA. So MEMA will have to pull down reserves from their budget to help support local law enforcement, to help support the entire effort where they can. So it's critical to realize that funding MEMA is important from this, as it has always been, but particularly during these types of times of disaster. As the Colonel and I were talking today, though, the impact of that, as bad as it is, you will see construction that is going on here into the future that may last a year. And so we will see a great deal of economic development that occurs in times of disaster because it has to. And it will take Mississippians to rebuild these homes, to rebuild William Carey University, to make sure the infrastructure has been replaced. So without FEMA and their dedicated work, along with our delegation, Murtis Franks is here from Thad Cochran's office. We had Stephen Plazo was here last Saturday with me. We had Thad Cochran's representatives at our meeting yesterday morning, Sunday morning there. And to make sure that we work from a local level to a federal level. But certainly the budgets at MEMA will be strained if not supported by the Mississippi legislature.
Any other questions?
Scott, Governor, if I could.
No, go right ahead. I thought you might want to say something down there.
I want to assure everyone that this is really not the time that I'm concerned about the MEMA budget. We have a disaster trust fund. There are funds in the disaster trust fund to respond to this, and I will never use any kind of fiscal concerns to impede our response to the people when they need our help. To date, I've authorized over $288,000 out of the disaster trust fund. That money is in the disaster trust fund, so we are not going to go into a deficit appropriation at this point. And provided that FEMA does give us, the president gives us the presidential disaster declaration, it is not going to be an issue. But I want to assure everyone that budget concerns never, ever impede me in making sure that public safety is being taken care of.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much.